KRISSPEPTIN. Is it the peptide you've been looking for? Stay tuned.
I created Species Nutrition with one mission in mind: to provide bodybuilders and serious athletes with no-nonsense supplements that work. I put my name and reputation on every bottle of Species Nutrition products. If you want to be your absolute best, join the evolution.
RX Television, RXMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, your weekly question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. Thanking you for joining us on this, the 24th day of September. We are 2.5 weeks away from the 2025 Olympia. We have a few more Iron debates and Olympia previews planned for the course of the next couple of weeks. And then, of course, in 2.5 weeks, Dave, myself, Chris Aceto, and the whole cast will be in Vegas to cover the Olympia wall-to-wall coverage of the 2025 Olympia weekend. Let's go right into the questions. The first two questions from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. Differences between aromasin, arimidex, and letrozol. Is one stronger than the other, or can they be interchangeable?
Yeah, before I even answer that question, I want to just say a lot of people have been asking me, hey, Dave, are you working with anyone at the Olympia this year? And I actually am. Kareth Baggio will be in the 212 vying for that title. I'm actually going to be in New York, Connecticut this coming weekend to see my sister. And I'm going to be seeing Kareth as well at Pro Body Gym, which is an awesome gym in Westchester there. I highly advise you check it out. It's like 4 or 5 stories high. It's got the best equipment I've ever seen. You know, it's phenomenal. So I'm looking forward to training there on Fridays, checking out Kareth in person, going through some posing. Maybe we'll put up a little posing video with Kareth because he's looking wacky. And Olympia fever's, starting up. So I'm getting excited. I know you're leaving. I'm leaving. I think on a Wednesday before the show. We get there?
I'm set to arrive. I'm leaving Tuesday evening. So yeah, I'm going to arrive Tuesday evening there. Yourself?
Yeah. I'll be there Wednesday morning. So
okay.
I got a direct flight out of Fort Myers, which is amazing. But so that's going to be the schedule. Yeah, and I know Chris is getting in even earlier than us, so we'll have some good previews coming up over the next couple of weeks. Now, I wanted to bring up one thing before we get to the questions. Titan Medical Center is offering $50 off their HEXARELIN growth hormone releasing peptide. It's, I think, the steepest discount they've ever given on any of the growth hormone releasing peptides, certainly on HEXARELIN, which is one of the most potent ones out there. So you want to check that out. Go over to TitanMedicalCenter.com. Also, their Retatrutide, which is the 3-in-1 GLP-1 agonist, which is great, obviously, for fat loss, blood sugar control, et cetera, et cetera. They are offering a discount on that as well. It's continuing from last week's discount, so you might want to check that out. It's funny how I hear Chris Aceto sent me an article, Sid, where these companies are investing like $35 billion in building facilities in the United States just to make these fat loss drugs, these GLP-1 agonists, because they don't want it. They can't. The world supply is running out of them, and these companies are losing money because they can't produce them fast enough. So they're going to be building these facilities here in the United States, which is great. Obviously, it brings money into the economy. It's going to really bolster, what we're doing here. I think we should make everything in this country, to be honest with you. But it's pretty interesting to know. Also, another note, if you've been watching the RFK Jr. / Donald Trump announcements, they're really making headway into autism, which I think is freaking awesome. So I'm excited about that as well. But let's get to the Dave Palumbo Experience questions. The question was, what is the difference between aromasin, Femara, and arimidex? They have their own generic names too, and astrozole, letrozol, and exomethystane. But they're all there's basically 3 aromatase inhibitors out there. And you know what? I've read studies about this from like 5 years ago, and they basically find that they all work just as efficiently. They're all pretty much the same potency. However, empirically, and the word empirically means what we observe, empirically, I do observe some people responding better to some of the aromatase inhibitors than others. Like I always did very well on arimidex. I know people that don't do well on arimidex. They still have estrogenic side effects, but if they take Femara, which is letrozol, it seems to work fine. And then I know people that don't do well on arimidex or Femara, and they take aromasin, which is exomethylstain, and they get great results on that. So they all work, pretty much the same by inhibiting the aromatase enzyme system. But I guess in everyone's body, maybe certain drugs just have a better affinity for that enzyme system and its inhibition. So having said that, my answer is they all work the same, but I qualify that by saying if you don't get good results with one, try another.
Second question, again, these first two from the Dave Palumbo Experience app. I want to run your baby making protocol. However, I'm unable to get a hold of HMG. I can, however, get a hold of the peptide KRISSPEPTIN. Can I use that instead of HMG?
Yeah. HMG is the magic in the baby making protocol. And as you guys know, I give it away for free. All you got to do is email me at huge285@AOL.com. Matter of fact, speaking of AOL emails, Aman, who works for me, he's telling me, he goes, did you hear Wednesday AOL is closing down? What are you going to do for your emails? And I'm like, what is he talking about? And he had sent me an email like a month or two ago and saying how AOL was shutting down. But really what Aman does, he only read the headline. He didn't really read the whole article. They're shutting down their dial-up service. So if you remember when AOL first came about, when the internet first came out, you had to use your telephone, your home phone number, home phone to call into the internet. And so they're getting rid of, I didn't even know anyone even used dial-up anymore. So AOL, thank God, is still working properly. It's just the dial-up they're getting rid of. Anyway, get back to the question.
I was just about to ask, do you know anyone else other than yourself who still has an AOL email address?
The only reason I use it is I'm petrified because I have literally 25 years worth of emails saved in all the different folders on AOL. So I don't want to lose all that information, and I'm not convinced that it's going to transfer over if I go to a Gmail account or something like that. So I might as well just keep it. You know what the funny thing is? I'm probably the only person in the entire world who still pays for AOL. In other words, I'm afraid to even, because they say it's supposedly quote free now. I don't even, right. I pay for $14 a month just because I don't want to risk losing, but it's not worth it. I'd rather just pay $14. I $14 falls out of my pocket, every day. So it's not even a big deal. Anyway, getting back to the question. HMG is the magic. That's human menopausal gonadotropin. It's also known as synthetic FSH. It basically mimics the hormone follicle stimulating hormone, which is a pituitary hormone, and it directly stimulates the testicles, specifically the Sertoli cells in the testicles, to produce sperm. That's why it's so potent. It's not the only important part of the pregnancy protocol that I give away, but it is probably the most potent form of the therapy that I'm suggesting. So if you can't get it, taking a peptide like KRISSPEPTIN, which I'll explain in a minute what that does, is not going to substitute for HMG. Will you still be able to get fertile not using the HMG? Probably. It might take a lot longer, but maybe not. For me, the magic happens when you take that 75 IUs of the HMG, 3 times a week. There are places that make it. TitanMedicalCenter.com sells the synthetic FSH. So you can just buy it from them. So I know for a fact that they produce it because we've discussed this, and I made sure that they sell it. Now, I've had people tell me, well, it's very expensive. Let me tell you something, and I've said this before, Sid, too, so I'm not losing my mind. It's very expensive to have children. If you can't afford to buy the FSH in order to get your wife pregnant so that you can have kids, you can't afford kids. So don't have kids if you can't do that. Believe me, the expenses that are going to come out of your pocket, you will have no clue what's going to come in the future once you have children. So having said that, you got to use the HMG. But let me explain what KRISSPEPTIN does. KRISSPEPTIN is a peptide that directly stimulates the hypothalamus gland in your brain. Okay, it acts like a gonadotropic releasing hormone, essentially, and it makes, and in doing so, it stimulates the hypothalamus to release this gonadotropic releasing hormone, and thus stimulate. Actually, it mimics the gonadotropin releasing hormone, and thus it stimulates the pituitary gland to release FSH and LH, luteinizing hormone, FSH, follicle stimulating hormone. The FSH will then tell the sperm cells, the Sertoli cells in the sperm, there's Sertoli cells in the testicles to produce sperm cells, and it will tell the Leydig cells in the testicles to produce testosterone, those two hormones. So it's an indirect way of stimulating those hormones, but it's not as potent of a signal. Whereas if you're taking HMG itself, it directly stimulates those testicles, the Sertoli cells, to produce sperm. So is it helpful? It can be. Is it a replacement for HMG? I would say no.
Let's go to the rest of our questions from our Instagram, from our Facebook, and from our YouTube community page, a page that we've really been trying to grow out. We're putting more short form content now as well on our YouTube page. So reels, highlights, and other, cool things. There was a little funny video, not from earlier this week. It was actually from a few years ago. I think it was Nick Walker and Derek Lunsford, I guess, having some sort of a playful confrontation at the airport. The way that it was put out, some people thought that it was from this week. No,
I saw that. I knew it was old. That's the funny thing.
Yeah. I think the common knowledge is that it was from, you remember when Olympia TV did that little challenge, a strength challenge, whatever, in Arizona. So somebody detected that it was an Arizona airport or whatever like that. So anyway, putting a lot more cool things on our YouTube shorts. So we're putting a lot more short form content. So a lot of the stuff that you see here on Ask Dave, Heavy Muscle Radio, so on and so forth. We're putting like the highlight reels onto that as well. And then we're going to be putting some of those on our Instagram page. Again, if you're not already following us on Instagram, I would highly advise that you do so, because come Olympia weekend, that's really where we're going to be loading up our own original stuff, as far as, our contest pictures that we're going to be taking live from prejudging, finals, meet the Olympians. We're going to try to really, really put a lot of the stuff that we would only put on our YouTube channel, or stuff that I guess didn't make it to the YouTube channel, onto Instagram. So official_RX Muscle is where you will find that. Let's go to the rest of the questions. I know we've addressed this before, but again, this is on a fairly hot topic right now, and that is methylene blue. What do you think about it, and where is the best place to get it, as there seems to be a lot of quote unquote bad stuff out there?
Methylene blue, my historical, relationship with that was always through fish tanks. I had fish tanks my whole life as an aquarium, hobbyist, and you use methylene blue. You drop a couple drops in water, in the fish tank water, in a little vial, and it will tell you, depending on how it turns, what color it turns, whether the fish tank is acidic or alkaline. So it interacts with the water and will tell you the pH of the solution. So I never knew of it anything else. Now, recently they've come out with some data to suggest that taking methylene blue will actually increase cognition, meaning make you more cognitively sharp. They think that it also can help with, because methylene blue can, I guess, mimic parts of the electron transport chain inside the mitochondria, and it can help shuttle, electrons faster, and thus produce ATP quicker. So it will be an energy increasing type agent. They think it also has some anti-cancer effects. It seems to be one of these, it can do everything type of compound. I bought a bottle of it off Amazon. They have some human grade versions of it there. And I have yet to use it, because I know that when I drop it into my mouth is going to, and my lips are going to turn blue. So I just haven't done it. I don't know why I haven't pulled the trigger on it to try it. Usually I'm into trying new things, but it is sitting in my cabinet. And at some point I will try. I also have a bottle of hydrogen peroxide too. Not the stuff you rub on your cuts, but it's like a human grade. We can ingest it, and you're supposed to mix that with water too. Those are two things that are sitting on my shelf. I have not experimented with yet, but they're things that people are using to supposedly enhance immune system, enhance cognition, increase energy production in the body. So, like I said, I have not tried it yet, but you might want to give it a go. It doesn't seem like there's anything harmful in the methylene blue, aside from it turning your mouth blue. And then I hear it could also, when you poop, the poop might be blue as well, because it go through the whole intestinal tract. But other than that, I don't think there's anything to worry about. By the way, if you guys want, you can subscribe to the Dave Palumbo Experience app, which we talked about a little earlier. I answered 2 questions from that. It's $29 a month. You get Dave Palumbo, me, as your coach in your back pocket. I answer everyone's questions in an open forum, so everyone sees everyone's questions and answers. I do a Q&A video exclusively for the app every single week. That's a great, great source of information. All my writings are there, all my videos I've ever done in an organized fashion, all my protocols, off-season, pre-contest diets, keto diets, cyclical carb diets, my cycles for beginners, advanced, men, women. Everything is in there. It's a great resource for everything that I teach on a regular basis, and it's constantly evolving. So it's great because you get it once, you look at all the knowledge, but then every week there's new stuff being put up there, and so it kind of keeps you guys apprised of what's going on. And we got a lot of members. I want to thank you for the support, and I think you're going to really enjoy it. It's great stocking stuffer for someone you love too, coming up for the holiday seasons.
How would you incorporate EQ versus test ratio, then progress doses weekly along with food consumption, maybe increase carbs by 200 calorie week 2, and maybe after 8 weeks, a tight deload before the next 8 to 9 weeks before off cycle? So I guess the core of the question is EQ versus test ratio, and then he kind of goes into the rest as far as increasing carbs and then doing a deload before coming off cycle.
Yeah, I think he's making things a little too complicated. But number one, and I've said this before, if you're not a beginner, okay, and you want to maximize gains, 1,000 milligrams of test is the sweet spot per week. I like to combine it with an anabolic, anywhere from 300 to 600 milligrams of an anabolic. So you can use up to 600 milligrams of EQ a week, or as low as 300, and you're still going to get a nice effect from that. Combined with the 1,000 milligrams of test, you're going to get a nice synergism between these two compounds. They stack well with each other. DECA and test stack well, Tren and test stack very well. And I like to usually, modify and swap out the compounds every 6 to 8 weeks just to keep the body guessing. But that, to me, the 1,000 milligrams, so it's if you want it on an average, a 2-to-1 ratio. So 2 times the testosterone as the anabolic. So if you're doing 1,000 tests, you do 500 EQ, 1,000 tests, 500 DECA. Now with Trenbolone, it's very strong. You don't need that 2-to-1. So with Trenbolone, it would be 1,000 tests, like 200 milligrams of like Tren and Anthate per week, and that would be ideal. So each compound's a little different, but in general, with DECA, Masteron and EQ, you're looking at about a 2-to-1 ratio.
Usually when we ask you about different training styles, different training methods, your answer is usually yes, but this one is specific to the GVT, the German volume training, 10 by 10. Does it really work to build mass and strength, or in your opinion, is it a gimmick?
I think a lot of the training systems out there are gimmicks, just because they're trying to make something, look, if it works, it's not a gimmick, right? Sometimes you have to be creative and create a training system that interests people in doing the training system, and that gets them to the gym. So in essence, I don't call it a gimmick, I call it a motivation, right? Do I think that like Hani's FST7 versus this protocol versus Neil Hill's, training system versus, dog crap training, versus John Meadows' mountain dog training? Do I think they're all, gimmicks? They're gimmicks, but they get people to the gym and they work. I don't like super high volume. I don't think it works well for anyone. There are genetic freaks that can respond to it, but the genetic freaks don't usually do high volume, lower weights. They do heavy weights and high volume, and they can get away with it because they're just good. They have a good recovery system. But for most people, and I was arguing with Greg Valentino this past week on After Hours, I said, your legs are your best body part. You claim you do 1 set or 2 sets for your legs, once a week, and they grow amazing. And then for your upper body, you're into this volume. You're doing like 30 sets for upper body. And meanwhile, your upper body is weaker. So why not? Maybe you should be training your legs with less volume. Your upper body with less volume, like you do your legs, you get better results. And it was so logical that I think it short-circuited his brain. But same thing. Volume doesn't work for many people because when you overdo the volume, it's like you become overtrained. And I know some people think you can't be overtrained if you're taking enough drugs or you're eating enough food, but that's not the truth. When overtraining has nothing about how much you're doing, it's the exhaustion of the neurotransmitters. Because remember, norepinephrine, acetylcholine, serotonin, all these neurotransmitters allow muscles allow nerves to talk to muscles. They don't touch each other. It's not an electrical system. There's a gap. It's called the synapse. And when a neurotransmitter is released, it goes from the nerve ending to the muscle cell, and then it tells the muscle what to do. If you run out of these neurotransmitters because you're training too much, which exhausts them, what happens is the muscle and the nerve can't talk to each other anymore. And then you get less strength. Your recovery is hampered. If it happens in your brain where the brain cells talk to each other, you don't have enough neurotransmitters because you've exhausted them in the gym. You get depressed sometimes, you get lethargic. And the only thing that really restores neurotransmitters is rest and sleep at night. So if you don't sleep enough, that's another problem. So it is possible to overtrain. It's a real phenomenon. It happens an awful lot, probably more so than people think. I know guys that go to the gym, and girls, 7 days a week, they never take off. And that's just bad idea. So I always tell people 5 days of weight training per 7-day week is more than enough. 2 days off for recovery purposes, and don't go crazy with the volume. I know some people respond to a little more volume than other people, and that's fine. But there's no reason you should be in the gym for 2.5, 3 hours, training with weights.
So Dorian Yates is coming out with a, quote, health longevity range of products as part of his BY Nutrition, resveratrol, glutathione, etc. Would you consider having a similar line of longevity type products as part of Species Nutrition? Now, again, we do have a health optimization line, but I guess as far as longevity, is that something you've considered?
Well, I think our products already are about longevity and good health. I mean, we have the most potent, multivitamin, multimineral, antioxidant, polyphenolic, trace metal, fruit and vegetable extract product on the market, demineralized. It's number one selling on Amazon. There's nothing better you can buy on the market. I know it because I made it for myself. We have the number one most potent, essential fatty acid supplement on the market, which is omega-lyze. No one puts 3 grams of fish oil, 2,600 milligrams of evening primrose oil, which is your omega-3s and 6s, plus palmitoleic acid, which is a really good omega-7 fat that increases insulin sensitivity, decreases total body inflammation. So those are the two most healthy. And then combine that with FiberLyze, which is the number one selling fiber supplement. It's what all the pros use. Everyone uses that. Those are your 3 most important health products. Now, as far as longevity goes, there is some evidence to suggest that resveratrol, can have some anti-aging effects. There's some, there's other products out there. Glutathione is not orally absorbable, so you'd have to sell it as as N-acetylcysteine. How much your body converts to glutathione, I'm not really, convinced that there's a lot that it happens to. I'd rather take an injectable form of glutathione. So, I try to leave the anti-aging products, which are much more potent as injectables, like NAD plus is an injectable, glutathione is an injectable. I leave those for people like TitanMedicalCenter.com to make, because they're compounded in pharmacies. The potency is real good, and we know that they work better by injection. I mean, testosterone replacement, same thing, better by injection. It has to be taken by injection. So, I don't want to come out with any kind of products that I would consider fluff products. So I'm not saying that what Dorian's doing is fluff. I'm sure there's some good science behind it, but basically I would be remarketing my demineralized product, with a couple of extra added ingredients and calling it a longevity product. It's already a longevity product. If people just took it on a regular basis, you wouldn't have to go buy anything else. And that's what I explain to people. People say, hey, I took this product, I feel better. Well, maybe if you weren't deficient in the vitamins, minerals, trace metals to begin with, you wouldn't even notice a difference. And I always tell people, if you take a good multivitamin and multimineral every single day, you never feel bad. So you don't even know that you don't even know what it feels like. That's why a lot of the studies that are done, they're like, we gave these 90-year-old people this many milligrams of vitamin this and vitamin that, and this is the great results we got after 2 weeks. Well, yeah, because they were completely deficient in everything, and now you've restored their vitamin, and mineral balance, and of course they're going to feel better, and they're going to have better, blood work, and they're going to have better performance in 2 weeks because they had nothing in their body, and now you put something in there. If your efficiency is already really good, meaning that your mineral, vitamin, trace metal balance, antioxidants are already at a high level. You already have enough essential fats in your body. Adding more stuff is not going to do anything because you're not deficient in anything. And so I think that, you have to, I had to come to this realization as a owner of a supplement company that people will only buy so many products, right? Because they can only afford to take so many products and they can only remember to take so many products. So I better put as much bang for the buck into each bottle that I produce. And that's what I tried to do. Keep the bottles to a minimum. Yeah, you have to take a bunch of pills, but it's one bottle you're taking it from. Here, one bottle here, one bottle here. And that's it. Because if you give people 600 different bottles to take every day, they're not going to do it. And it becomes expensive. So that's my whole philosophy on species nutrition is try to get everything into one thing so you can have one bottle here, one bottle here, one bottle here, and it covers everything that your body needs.
Interesting one here about none other than Nasser. I heard Nasser El Sonbaty had a $3 million house and lived in a neighborhood of CEOs. Is this true? And if so, did he do anything different from other bodybuilders for extra income? We know that he was smart.
I don't have my Nasser glasses, but let me put my glasses on. Yes, I am the smartest bodybuilder on the market. The acromegaline, Dave Palumbo, he feels that he is smarter than me, but he is not, unfortunately for him. But I have not lived in. The claims are slightly exaggerated. I did not have a $30 million house, although I am good friends with some of the wealthiest. They would come to me for advice, and I would tell them I'm not interested to talk about the chicken breast and rice because it does not interest me. But I would like to know how you have made your money. And yes, the claims have greatly exaggerated, but yes, I understand because of my intelligence that people think that I was worth a lot of money.
That was, so I'll put it this way. The first 85% of that, you were Nasser, and then eventually you kind of blended into Dave Palumbo.
I know. No, you know what? I don't think that Nasser was worth $30 million. I think he bought a $3 million house. You said 30 million, actually. You said 30 million.
No. Oh yeah, I misspoke. Okay. 3 million, but he lived in.
I don't think he bought any house for $3 million because Nasser didn't make that much money back in the day. Nasser had money and he was smart with his money. He wasn't like a typical guy going out and buying fancy cars and watches and stuff like that. He saved a lot of his money. So when he retired, all the rumors of him working at Men's World and all these other crazy, stupid things, that was all BS. He had plenty of money probably to live the rest of his life, because he was smart like that. But I don't think he lived in a $3 million house now. Think about it. Back in the 90s, a $3 million house would be worth $10 million today, probably.
Yes. We do have now, and I know if you want to refresh those who may not be aware, you're going to India in November, correct?
Yeah,
we're saying like they can't wait to meet you there. Yeah,
we're solidified. I'm going to be at the Shrew Classic. I haven't talked to Shrew about it, but our distributor there, Alpha Elite, who does a great job. If you guys are looking for species nutrition products in India, I know we have a lot of viewers from India. You can go to alphaelite.com, and that's the distributor sells all the species products there. I think we have a couple more products coming in over the next couple of weeks. But yeah, I will be at the booth there in India, in Mumbai, and answering questions, maybe doing a seminar. And I'm gonna make sure they bring a ton of product there for you guys to buy.
Take a couple more questions. The quickest way to recover your HDL level as quickly as possible after a cycle of harsh orals has tanked it.
Yeah, here's my feeling on HDL cholesterol. We know there's LDL and HDL, and there's other intermediate ones too, but predominantly we talk about LDL versus HDL. HDL is the analogy I give people is LDL is like the litter bug of the circulatory system. It kind of just dumps cholesterol around, and kind of HDL is the vacuum cleaner that kind of cleans up the cholesterol. It's a very cartoonish version of what really goes on, but you get the picture. If your LDL is in reasonable range, okay, you really don't need a lot of HDL, because in other words, if you're not making a mess in the circulatory system to begin with, then there's no reason to have to clean it up, right? There's nothing to clean up. So I think the guys that have really low HDLs, I used to get into single digits, it's at certain points of my cycle. When I would, but my LDL was always very low, it was like 70, so I was at no risk for laying down, plaque and stuff like that. The people who have super high LDLs, those people don't want their HDLs too suppressed because they need the HDLs to help clean up some of the junk. Now, there's new dogma that says that if your LDL cholesterol is high, but your triglycerides are normal, which is the amount of, usually triglycerides are analogous to how much sugar is in your body. If you eat too much sugar, it gets converted to triglycerides. The liver tries to pull them out of the circulation and stores them in the liver, which could be known as fatty liver. And if it gets overwhelmed, where the liver can't store any more of these triglycerides, they circulate in the bloodstream. And then, you're said to have, on blood work, you should have high triglycerides. So high triglycerides in conjunction with high LDL seems to be more dangerous. Take another step forward. Another, thought pattern is that LDL is not dangerous if it's not laying down plaque, because the people who have the highest LDL numbers also have the least amount of dementia. Because if your cholesterol is too low, it can cause dementia because the body uses cholesterol to make the cell membranes of cells. It uses cholesterol to make all the steroidal hormones in the body. So we need cholesterol. And people, so that's why when they put you on statins, they're showing now that statin usage over a long period of time can lead to dementia, early dementia, because your brain cells can't repair themselves because they don't have any cholesterol present to do that. So what's the answer? If you have high LDL, okay, or your LDL is even a little high and your HDLs are really low and you're concerned, guess what? Go for a cardiac CT scan. There's two types. There's the cardiac calcium score, which is less accurate, but it gives you kind of an idea of whether you have calcium being laid down in your coronary arteries. The cardiac CT scan with contrast, however, which is they basically inject a little contrast into your bloodstream, is a much more accurate picture of what's going on. And if you get that test done and guess what? You have no blockages, there's nothing there, then you don't have to worry about it. Who cares what the HDLs are? Who cares what your LDLs are? You're not laying down any plaque. If, however, that comes back and you have blockages or you have, plaque formation, then you got to reevaluate. Maybe your diet is off. Maybe you have to think about some of your lifestyle changes, and you have to look at your genetics of your body, because sometimes a lot of the laying down of plaque has a lot to do with what your genetic or family predisposition is. So HDL is not the do-all, end-all. Usually it takes about 3 to 4 weeks to bounce back a little bit after a cycle. It probably won't come back to normal for 6 months. Unfortunately, most people go back on cycle after 8 weeks off. So you're probably looking at HDLs that are going to be suppressed, most of the time if you're on cycle, most of the year.
I wanted to squeeze this one, last one of the show. Question about T4 and HGH. Do you need to supplement with T4 when using GH? Free T4 is below reference range, but TSH and free T3 are looking good.
This might be, remember I used to tell you the HCG question was the most asked question we get about HCG.
Yes.
And post-cycle therapy. I think this is taking over. I really do. The T4 question while on GH. I'll say it again. When you take growth hormone, okay, one of the fat-burning effects of growth hormone is that it directly mobilizes fat from the fat cells. We know that. But one of the indirect fat-burning effects of GH is that it causes thyroxine, which is known as T4, or the inactive thyroid hormone in your body. It causes more T4 to convert to the active form T3, or triiodothyronine. So T4 converts to T3. So when you go for blood work while you're on GH, you'll notice that T4 is suppressed, or looks suppressed. It's really not suppressed. It's just there's less of it, and there's more T3. So your T3 levels are higher, T4 is lower. The reason that's happening is not because the thyroid gland is not working. It's just because more of your body's converting more of the T4 into T3, which makes sense because T3 is active thyroid, which helps burn fat. So it's an indirect effect of GH. The question is, do I need to supplement with T4 because my T4 is low? The answer is no, because T4 doesn't do anything in the body. It's the T3 that does everything. That's the active thyroid hormone. So most people who find that they go for blood work when they're on GH and they notice low free T4, their T3 tends to be a little higher than normal, and their TSH, thyroid stimulating hormone, is normal or low. Because what happens is as T3 goes up, the body doesn't need as much thyroid, so it'll temper its release of thyroid stimulating hormone. But in most of the blood work that I look at, I see low T4, higher T3, normal TSH, and that there's nothing wrong with that. Taking extra T4 is going to do nothing because your body's not going to convert it. It only converts what it needs. And when you're on GH, it forces your body to convert a little extra beyond what you normally produce. But taking more T4 is not going to do anything for you.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave. Again, if you haven't already done so, subscribe below, hit the notification bell so you're not going to miss anything that we have coming up over the next 2.5 weeks leading into the Olympia. And then, of course, all the coverage that we're going to bring you here on this channel as well as on our Instagram, official_RX Muscle. For Dave Palumbo, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.